live and online. It's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski.
Back and better than ever with two of my favorite human beings. It is Sleepless with Steve live on YouTube. We come to you live and in living color every Wednesday. I almost said every weeknight. Every Wednesday, 6:30 to 7:30.
What a dream.
We couldn't come to you every weeknight. These two would unionize, and it would be a nightmare for yours truly. I'm Steve Pulaski. Good to have you along for the ride. Dominic Guanzon in that blue polo. Don't ever take off that blue polo, Mr. Dom. And we got Joe repping Fight Club, repping some David Fincher in the house over here. It is Sleepless with Steve. Gentlemen, how are we today? Dom, start with you.
Yeah, I'm doing all right. The news is very doomer here in Illinois. Today, the governor went on the air and we had a very fun conversation about Delta COVID reinstating the restrictions, a certain degree of restrictions. And let's not get into that because that's all politics and not that
Let's
it's
not
honestly
get into
not that
what he says as he gets into it.
it's not even politics. It's literally just like, this is depressing as shit. And we're reliving this just over like a year and a half later. So yeah, fun times. Anyway, other than that, though, it's my day off. So it's my one day off. And I got to go to a matinee movie today. I actually saw Jungle Cruise about 6 hours ago.
Ooh, so it's hot
as hell. It is hot. And yeah, it's I'm doing all right. So we'll see how long that lasts.
As Cool and the Gang once said, it's too hot. Gotta run for shelter. Gotta run for shade. Joe, how are you? What's the good news, brother?
I'm doing good, man. Yes, I'm repping Fight Club tonight. It has nothing to do with what we're reviewing or even talking about remotely. It's just a movie, so that's the only relating thing to it. But I'm doing great. This week I got to basically have like my first time I've ever actually have to do this for like any job, but go golfing with very high up professional people. And I'm not good at golf, but I'm good at chit-chatting and driving the golf cart, so they had fun with me, at least in that regard. But yeah, man, I had a great time this week. I saw Jungle Cruise actually Thursday night with my dad. He had the week off, and him and I had some father and son time. And I was like, why don't you come with me? I could get you in for free with my AMC A-list stuff. Like, I get a free ticket. And yeah, no, I'll talk about the movie in a bit of what I thought about it. But like, I just been having, ever since the last week's show, I've had a very fun week.
Oh man, golfing with elites.
I'm sorry, and I went up to Michigan on Saturday to the Warren Dunes. And let me tell you, if you ever want to have a beach day where there's barely anybody there and tons of sand where you don't grow old, go to the Warren Dunes in Michigan.
Oh, you almost stole my thunder on this one. You're not getting out of here without hearing me sing poorly. Golfing with elites and more. Born in 1994. Joey Viso.
Hey. There we go.
Bo Burnham and Steve Pulaski. What can I say?
Oh, man. I've been listening to Inside the album all week. Oh my God, you should see me walking around the radio station at work and just being like, Daddy made you some content. Oh man, but good to see you, gentlemen. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're staying safe. Sounds like we're having a gay old time, as they used to say in the days of yore. I've been watching a lot of Bing Crosby and Bob Hope recently, the Road to movies. So that's what's gotten me in my old dialect over here. But anyway, we got a great show for you tonight. We're reviewing Jungle Cruise, as Dom alluded to earlier. We're going to talk about that in the mid portion of the show. We will also touch on one of the most anticipated movies of the fall being delayed. Clifford the Big Red Dog getting pulled from the release schedule. Dom, I don't want to say it, you had an awesome comment in the group chat when this went down. Would you reiterate it?
Yeah, It's actually kind of depressing, but
it's funny as hell. If you can't joke, what's left?
I mean, honestly, they probably delayed it because that giant red dog is just a mobile super spreader all on its own. That's probably why it was resurging. But yeah.
He won the group chat that evening when that news broke. But we'll dive into that. Not so much just about the matter of fact, but just like, let's go. Could we see this happening with other movies and whatnot? So we'll touch on that towards the end of the show. And we're going to open with this. It's always great to open the show talking about a lawsuit, especially when none of us are involved in it. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about Scarlett Johansson, or ScarJo, as the cool kids apparently say.
She hates
Scarlett
that. I think she hates
Johansson.
that.
I hate it. I hate it. You know, I wrote it on my notes just because it saved time. But no, Scarlett Johansson is suing Disney. She filed a lawsuit in LA Superior Court last week, alleging that Disney breached her contract by releasing Black Widow on Disney Plus. Now, Dom and I, Joe wasn't here for the show, but we did review Black Widow, and we did talk about the box office haul because it made over $200 million if you factor in the money made from Disney Plus. Now, Disney Plus, to my knowledge, hasn't acknowledged how much it's made in subsequent weeks on Disney Plus, but the big news was that sort of out of nowhere they came out and said what Black Widow made on Disney Plus, which I believe was about $30 million, which I believe was a decent portion of their entire haul as was. But like many Marvel headliners, her cut was to be based on the film's box office haul. Now, you got to remember, Black Widow was supposed to come out in 2020, and it was filmed long before the pandemic was even a thought in our minds. So obviously there was no, I mean, when this thing was filmed, Disney Plus wasn't in existence when this thing was filmed. So there was no thought that, let alone the pandemic, but there was no thought that even Disney could comprehend releasing a movie on this magnitude direct to streaming or on streaming in conjunction with a theatrical release. The dual release, whether or not the cut and dry, is it undoubtedly cut into the film's theatrical margins. And there's no clause in her contract about streaming, since that was an afterthought, or since that wasn't a thought when the film was released. Here's the first thing, and I don't want to go too long-winded. I don't have a ton of huge opinions on this, but how Disney didn't patch this up before the release of this movie is mystifying to me. It is truly mystifying, and it's not the first time. If you guys remember, I know Joe mentioned Soul. Back when Soul was released, the animators were pissed off when it was released to Disney Plus for free. The same thing with Luca. Now, granted, the animators of Luca and Soul do not have the clout, unfortunately, that Scarlett Johansson does. And they were probably in their contracts not bound to the film's box office gross in order to get the portion of their salaries for the work they did on the film. But having said that, there is evidently a very piss poor level of communication amongst people, especially the fact that they didn't patch this up. And you couple this with the fact that, like, you look at Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers months ago, before this year even started, said, we're releasing our entire theatrical slate on HBO Max for free, in addition to a theatrical release, and nobody's complained. The only one who's complained is Denis Villeneuve, but that is more about just the overall performance of Dune, so it should secure a sequel, and so it should be a success. That's not really about his pocketbook in general.
Yeah.
There really hasn't been, nobody's complained. You look at it, LeBron didn't complain with Space Jam 2, Anthony Ramos didn't complain about In the Heights, Angelina Jolie didn't complain about Those Who Wish Me Dead, Denzel Washington, Little Things, or even James Gunn with Suicide Squad, which is coming out on Friday. Nobody's complained.
James Gunn has only really says, like, yeah, it sucks because, like, you know, he's like, I made this with having, like, theaters in mind, but he's like, I'm perfectly fine with keeping people safe, though. Like, I understand.
Yeah, and it's different though. But that is a different, that in itself is a different statement than, like, F you pay me.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like that's the thing. This is about money. And that's what I can't figure out here, is that Disney had all the time in the world. Black Widow was delayed for over a year. They had all the time in the world to rectify this with Scarlett Johansson, but they didn't. And they threw Black Widow, in so many words, to the wolves because it's kind of, I mean, in itself, the movie's really kind of a launch pad. It's, first off, I said before, it's 9 years too late, 10 years too late. And the other thing is that it's a launch pad for the Hawkeye series. So, like, it was kind of thrown to the wolves to begin with in so many ways. Scarlett and I think Black Widow as a hero got screwed on the whole thing, but that's a whole different argument. But I'm with Scarlett on this. I hope Scarlett can get a piece of this, but the Disney lawyers are already coming out in force. There's a smear campaign on her. This is going to get ugly. This is when Mick Mickey turns into the Mickey Mouse as seen on South Park. That's how ugly this is bound to get. I'll throw it over to Joe. I know Joe's got opinions on this.
And let me start off by saying I still have not seen Black Widow, by the way. I still have not seen it.
Really?
I'm planning to see it this week. I'm going to do like a double feature with both Black Widow and Suicide Squad. Just knock out both these comic book movies in one sitting. But as somebody who still hasn't seen the movie, I am also on Scarlett Johansson's side because it's, at the end of the day, it's just a contract. If you're contractually obligated to have a film come out only in theaters so that way you can receive your theater gross, then you fulfill that contract. Or you change it and be like, hey, ScarJo, listen, I know Shade's being called that, but listen, we got to put this on Disney Plus. We still think it's too early. We don't know what the state of the country is going to be at this time in July. How about we rework the contract where you get a portion of the Disney Plus profit as well as whatever the theatrical thing is? And I'm sure she probably would have been fine with that, or you guys could have just done what you've been doing with this movie, what everybody's been doing with these movies, and just push it back just a little bit. You're Disney. Who's going to go up against you? Like, who's going to have the balls to be like, Free Guy? He's gonna take down Black Widow. like that's the way I look at this. It's like you guys had all the time in the world to, like Steve said, readjust the contract or even push it back further. Because I'm telling you right now, with the state of the world that we're having right now, I won't be surprised if Shang-Chi is also released on Disney Plus, if the Eternals and the new Spider-Man movie are also released on Disney Plus as well. I don't know about
I didn't think about Shang-Chi. I didn't think about Shang-Chi.
Yeah, that is next. I almost said next year, but it might be pushed to next year. But it is next month, early next month too. It's the first week of September. I don't
coming
think
quick.
I don't think it's gonna be only theatrical. I think last minute they're gonna pull something and do the whole theatrical release. But I don't see anybody in that movie really being like, screw you, Disney, pay me. Because, like, Scarlett Johansson, like Steve says, has a lot of clout. She's been a producer for a lot of movies. She's been in the game for a long time. She's earned credentials. She's an A-list actress. And everybody I talk to, like, is on her side with this. People that I know that even like Scarlett Johansson are like, yeah, no, like, she's more than entitled to what she is deserved here. Like, my friends who are just like, yeah, she's rich and everything. Like, does she need more money? No. But at the end of the day, it's a big corporation that's fucking over people. And that's, like, something that, like, we need to call out on.
It doesn't matter that David has millions of dollars. Goliath has billions.
Yeah.
That's put it into perspective there. I know that. Yeah, I know the first gut, honestly, the first gut reaction upon hearing this is like, Scarlett doesn't need freaking money. Like she's fine. It's not about. And then I came to my senses like 5 seconds later. I was like, oh, okay, no, this isn't about that. Yeah. This is ultimately this is about an actor, a worker getting screwed over. And yes, I know an A-lister is not exactly starved for auditions, right? Scarlett Johansson isn't, but that kind of stuff, unfortunately, but that's just the way society works, is that it kind of trickles down, so that she's getting screwed. If she's getting screwed over, you got to think about everyone else, beneath her in terms of the spotlight that are also getting screwed over.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
No, and I was gonna say, like, the perfect way to sum it up, and then Don will throw it back to you, is there was this meme I saw on Twitter, and I have it up right now on screen. It's from Rise of Skywalker, which is a bad movie, but, like, that's regardless. It's the scene where they're like, I don't care if Scarlett Johansson wins, I just need Disney to lose.
Yeah.
Which I think I'm like,
true.
that is such a perfect thing. It's just like, I hope Scarlett Johansson wins. It doesn't matter to me if she wins or lose, because at the end of the day, it's like Disney, like, they're, to me, as much as, like, yeah, they make good entertainment and everything for families and whatnot, they are a monopoly, though, in my eyes, as of now, with how much they own. So it's just like, seeing them get taken down a peg, it's just like, okay, they're not in control as much as we thought they are, like, media overall.
That scene works so much better as a meme than it does in the film itself. Like, that was such a dumb line. Anyway, beside the point, I guess, unless there's anything else, we'll probably end on that. At least from this July 30th Hollywood Reporter, which, by the way, Hollywood Reporter has like a whole legal section of their website, which is really cool. I actually
over
really
the last
appreciate that.
year doing this show, apropos of really nothing, but like, I've really loved the Hollywood Reporter. I've got to the point I read it like bi-weekly. Like, it is an excellent resource.
No relation to the Hollywood Foreign Press, right? Or is it? No, I don't think so, right?
I don't
Unless I'm
think it
wrong
is.
there.
I don't think
Yeah, I
it
don't think
is.
so either.
No.
But anyway, just quick thing here, Joe. I don't know. I think you might have brought up the CNN article, but regardless, um, no. So yeah, arbitration is a part of a contract where it's like, hey, we will settle this, and we have to agree to it, and that's like almost a given in these kinds of things. That's like been a given for a long time, I would think, but in all sorts of actors clauses for time memorial. But I think they're either that fell apart or Disney bypassed that altogether. I don't think they were stupid enough to do that, but I guess things just fell apart, is my guess. But regardless, Hollywood Reporter says, quote, instead, Johansson is making the sideways claim that Disney, as parent company, caused Marvel, its subsidiary, to breach contractual obligation. So it's not so much the actual, point of the matter, which is kind of the heart of the thing, but rather she's making a kind of a technical argument to get around that. Because if she does make that direct, exact claim, where it's like, yeah, you're breaching contract because Disney Plus, blah, 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 then it just automatically, the legal process moves from question, arbitration. But now it's not arbitration. Instead, it's the pressure of the matter. It's like a political thing, political within the politics of the company and the negotiations. So how that pans out, we'll have to see as the news develops. But keep that in mind, that there is a technical, as for most major decisions in a lot of things, it usually comes as a technical agreement or a technical win or loss.
Yeah, I'm glad Joe brought up the thing I'll end on is that, like, it's so easy, and I kind of get like this too. It's so easy when you see like the wealth gap grow exorbitantly in this country. It's so easy to brush off something like this, like they don't need the money, and they truly don't. They don't need the money. They're already rich, this and that and the other. But it's not about that. It's about principle. And I don't care where you work. And I mean, especially like me, I work in a very creative field where the line between ownership and copyright is kind of nebulous in my line of work in terms of like the creation of certain things. And I'm not saying this is my situation because it isn't, but I'm just saying that like you see it in my own industry of radio, and I see it just broadly. There's no shortage of infinitely creative people in the world that bust their ass for their own art. And there's no shortage of suits that take that for granted, weasel the creativity out of people, and then wind up alienating and getting rid of the people who do that, and just think anybody can do it.
Yep.
And it's been since time immemorial. It's been this thing.
Yeah.
It has been this ongoing push-pull, whether it's Hollywood or any other industry where creativity is paramount. It is always been that problem, and it's about principle more than it is millions.
I'm actually very much surprised that like Kevin Feige even came out and backs up Scarlett Johansson about the whole mess of it. And I'm also even shocked to see people like Emily Blunt, Gerard Butler, I think was another one, and then Emma Stone, who are also making like similar claims too about their movies, like, and like the contracts they had.
It's rumored for now, but I wouldn't be surprised if in the next week Emma Stone might do something about it, or maybe she'll back off.
Emma Stone, I didn't even think about that though, because I saw Kevin Feige came out in support. I didn't think about that with Emma Stone and Cruella, because she's an A-lister too. She probably got some agreement on that. Front, and but she doesn't have the clout. I don't think the clout of Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, we're not simping for Scarlett over here. We know that she's not, a $7 an hour fast food worker or anything. But hey, you know what? Hey, yo, real talk though. Look at Judy Garland and all those era of actors and actresses. They actually were like screwed as workhorses. Like this is like child abuse, not even sexual, just like child abuse on like you're working these kids to death as actors. And remember, there was a time that we have long since forgotten because we've progressed, but there was a time where we just treated actors like absolute dog shit, and kind of like to the level that we do fast forward and Amazon workers now.
Especially young actors and women. Especially young actors and women.
The line has advanced. The line is drawn. Hold that line. Don't fall back. Okay, it's enough of that.
Like Toto said, hold the line. The other song everybody forgets because Africa's so damn popular. Anyway, moreover, it's time to talk about Jungle Cruise. I don't think I sent this to you guys, but I'm just gonna come out right and say, you know, the bar to clear for Jungle Cruise, in terms of like just things that inspired that ride. Now, for full disclosure, I've never been to Disneyland. I've never been on the ride. I know about it. I know a lot about it. I know friends who've enjoyed it. I've never been on the Jungle Cruise ride. Dom, have you?
I think I went to Disneyland, so California, Disneyland, when I was like a kid. And I think I distinctly remember going on, some sort of boat on a river, make-believe river. And there was like jungles. So Jungle Cruise. I'm pretty sure that was it. And there were like natives and stuff. And honestly, I'm trying to remember, like, I'm pretty sure those natives are really super freaking offensive. Like back at least in the 90s.
I think they've actually came out, like, I think within the last few years, they've changed how the natives look.
Yeah, because the old one, you just look Jungle Cruise natives, and it's like some pretty bad stuff, dude.
Jesus.
I don't know if you want to put that on screen or not.
They're gonna change their name to the Disneyland football team. But anyway, so here's the thing. My bar for Jungle Cruise, like, inspired entertainment has always been the Weird Al Yankovic song Skipper Dan. It does not get any better than that song, and I encourage anybody to go watch the video to that song and listen to it, because it's one of Weird Al's best songs. It's not a parody, it's a style parody. It's not a direct parody of a song, it's a style parody of Weezer. So it's very similar sounding to Weezer, the song Skipper Dan by Weird Al Yankovic. I've always loved that song. I thought it was going to be my life like 11 years ago. It's really good. It's about a failed actor who went to Juilliard and stuff, but instead he's working the Jungle Cruise ride. So it's always been my bar for entertainment. So I will say right off the bat, the Disney movie Jungle Cruise doesn't come close to touching Skipper Dan, but admittedly few things do. So I'll just get that out of the way. As it stands, however, though, I just want to say this before I really even get my thoughts. I might even throw it over to you, Joe, after I get done rambling here. But we don't get a lot of movies like Jungle Cruise. So when we do, it's a treat. We don't get a lot of movies that have this, and I've used this term in my reviews before, this swashbuckling spirit. And it's kind of weird because Disney, of all studios, was predicated on this kind of entertainment about 50 years ago, 60 years ago, with Swiss Family Robinson, with 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, with a plethora of these types of movies. And they've kind of incrementally made a comeback. You obviously had Pirates of the Caribbean and that whole franchise. You had, what the hell's the name of that one? Oh, Journey to Mysterious Island. You had that one, which also starred The Rock. And I think I go back and forth on this. I think Cutthroat Island in 1995 really ruined it all. When Cutthroat Island, which for a while was the biggest box office bomb of all time. I don't think it still is, but for a while that was the biggest box office bomb of all time, was a movie called Cutthroat Island, which was very similar. I think it was a bit more adult, but it was still along that kind of like set sail swashbuckling spirit. The original Treasure Island's another one too, not the animated one. But we don't get a lot of movies. And I always think of these movies as kind of a treat because of that. Because it's in a time of so many superheroes and blockbusters and 20,000 Fast and the Furious movies and all that. We get easy.
You leave family out of this.
we don't get a lot of these kid-centric adventure movies. And I appreciate when we do. And even a movie like Jungle Cruise, flaws and all, I'll be honest, I had a smile on my face a good portion of this movie. It's not flawless by any means. There's a couple, I think, big negatives to it, but like, I'll say it's fun. I'll say it's a good time at the movies. I think that's what I call it in my review. It's a good time at the movies for the most part. Joe, you could take it from here.
I'm going to kind of piggyback off of what you said as well, at least with your opening statement. There isn't a lot of these kind of movies that we do get nowadays. That is 100% for sure, because studios are only interested now when it comes to blockbusters and franchises and universes, because, you know, as much as I love the MCU, it did kind of set the precedent of we got to make everything a franchise, we got to make everything a universe. Ghostbusters, the DC, the dark universe of Universal monster films, you know, like stuff like that. So every once in a while, it is good to get an Indiana Jones type of thing, a Mummy thing. Not the Tom Cruise one. I'm talking about like the Brendan Fraser, where it's just like dumb fun adventures. But I'm not gonna lie, when I saw the trailers for this movie, it just gave me a bad taste in my mouth. One, because for me, I'm getting tired of seeing The Rock. It's just like I feel like he's in every other movie nowadays. Two, it was another ride movie from Disney, and I was like, all right, well, Tomorrowland kind of sucked, unfortunately. And the last two Pirates of the Caribbean movies have been pretty bad. I'm like, oh, you know, seeing their track record with their ride movies, I'm like, all right, well, at least this has Emily Blunt. At least I'll have something like to enjoy about this movie. However, this movie actually was a lot of fun. I was so shocked. I went into this movie like just kind of like, all right, we'll see what they can do. And like, I'm not gonna lie, like the way it starts out too, I thought was really bad. Like it goes on this long exposition with a flashback sequence and everything. I'm like, oh, here we go. I'm like, this is already like in a bad spot. The movie actually, oddly enough, even though I just said I'm getting tired of seeing The Rock, the movie for me, when you cut to the introduction to The Rock's character as Skipper, Frank the Skipper, I should say, that is actually where this movie starts to turn around for me. It's not too much. It doesn't take long to get there, but like it starts to turn around there. I have never been to Disneyland. I've only been to Disney World, and I think Jungle Cruise only exists at Disneyland. And if it exists at World, I've just never been at. Okay, all right.
It just exists at Land.
Okay, that's what I thought. I know the whole thing about like it's a very cheap ride because it was made back then. There's a lot of corny jokes because it was made back then. And I think it has a very fun... to me, this should have been the opening to the movie, honestly, is where he's taking tourists down the Jungle Cruise, doing puns. He's, like, activating the traps. He's literally paying the natives of the land to come out and, like, you know, scare them and make them think they're in danger, that this jungle is so dangerous and everything. I was like, no, this is how you should have opened this movie. Then cut to Emily Blunt's character's narration thing with her brother.
I thought the same exact thing. I said, what a way to bury the lead.
Yeah. Like, I understand, like, Emily Blunt is kind of the main character here more than Skipper or Frank the Skipper. But it's just like, this is the better way to open the film. Like, this sets the tone and everything. This would have been great. And, like, you know, the worst part is, too, the flashback that we get at the beginning of this movie, we get it again near the end of the movie. And I was just like, we didn't actually really need that in general, actually. But then I'll toss it off to Dom to give, like, his opening thoughts. But basically, from there on out, the movie went from already, like, this opening, I was like, man, this is already starting off like a 2-star territory. And it started to work its way up. And I was like, the longer it went on, the more I was having fun. And as much as I said, like, damn, am I tired to see The Rock? And he wasn't, like, my favorite performer in here. He was a lot of fun in this movie, though. He paired very well with Emily Blunt. By all of his co-stars that he's ever worked with, Kevin Hart, all these people... That's the only one that could come to my mind, unfortunately. But all of his co-stars, I honestly think Emily Blunt is the best one by far he's worked with. I think him and her, like, they had pretty good chemistry.
When I first heard about this movie, which was not too long ago at all, to be honest with you, I thought one thing, okay, Jungle Cruise, really, you're gonna do it off of that ride. The only thing I remember is that it's a boat on a river. And again, I think I rode this ride. And the tour guide who talks you through the whole ride is the most important part of that ride because they are filling in all that time. They're the ones that are leading you through this adventure. And the dude, I specifically remember that the dude who took us through that riverboat ride, he was like making puns left and right, jokes left and right. So it's like a tribute. So that part where The Rock is joking about the whole time, that part of his character, that's all a tribute to all the boat operators. They're not even operating the boat, but you know, all the tour guides. One dude even was like, "Oh, look, it's a native." He had like a microphone, and it's like he was like making the sound effects through this microphone, like Disney, right? Millions of dollars putting into this ride. Nah, this is a janky ass ride. I'm gonna make the sound effects on my microphone, and it was so funny. And I think we actually wrote it twice, and it was like a completely different thing. So, you know what, shout out to them. And honestly, The Rock kind of, not kind of, I think he lived up to that to a good degree. The Rock, love him or hate him, he's got a certain aura that you can't deny. And Emily Blunt, I think actually was able to match that because she's known as being a tough bitch, quote unquote. I think she really earned that Actually, they no, they literally call her that in Edge of Tomorrow, where she's like this stone cold iron bitch or something like that. Anyway, but when she has that warmth to her as well, and that kind of that youngness and that or the youthful kind of energy to her, it's really cool. And seeing those two worlds collide is really, really nice. Yeah, dude, when I first watched this, when I first heard about this movie, all I was thinking, like, I hope it's like The Mummy. Like Brendan Fraser's The Mummy. Like and honestly, the whole time I was thinking, like, damn, they got the swashbuckling dude, they got the kind of the naive but still spunky heroine, spunkier in this case. She's equally as swashbuckling, which I appreciated. And then you've got like the really prissy Englishman brother who's like just kind of useless, but then grows useful, has useful moments throughout the whole thing. And I can make comparisons left and right, but honestly, like, I'm glad I had that mentality going in, because apparently that's exactly not confirmed, but like it seemed like that's exactly what they were doing with this movie.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing, because it is the feel, at least, is classic adventure. Like, it's literally called Jungle Cruise. You could not get more Gennaro than that. And but honestly, I'm really happy with it. So like, there's a degree of campiness, cartoonishness that I was like kind of hoping for, and they honestly quite nailed that. When Paul Giamatti is coming in as an Italian dude, and it's like, oh, you're gonna open the money, Franco me the money. It's like, okay,
with an unmistakable, like, glaring gold tooth.
Yeah, the most scummy pig nose kind of dude, and it's like, the fat goes to the money. It's okay, we're here now. Let's build off of this. Let's build off of this. And then Jesse Plemons, he was introduced earlier, but then he comes in a freaking submarine dressed up to the nines in like a German cavalry uniform. Like, okay, we got something going here.
Jesse Plemons really out here making me give movies like an extra half star. Like, for Jesse Plemons, I swear to God, man, Game Night, he was good in The Post.
I love him in Game Night, man. That's my favorite performance of his still to this day.
One of my favorite lines that needs to be on his reel when he's 85 years old and about to retire is the line from Game Night when he asked Jason Bateman, "How in the world is that profitable for Frito-Lay?"
I forgot about that.
2 for $5. How is that profitable?
When he's in that submarine, he opens the scene with him speaking German, and he never speaks a lick, maybe like a word, but all of his dialogue is English after that. Look, even among other Germans.
He yells at bees like,
I was about to say that. We just got to talk about a movie where a basketball player, like, had trouble talking to tunes around him that weren't actually there. And then we have Jesse Plemons come in to talk to imaginary bees that are communicating with him. And it's just like, see, this is the difference, man. You get an actor like Jesse Plemons and then Michael Jordan. This is how you know the difference.
And the green screen budget for this movie had to be about the same as Space Jam.
And something that separates it from Space Jam, just in terms of the cartoonishness, is that Space Jam, it's actually kind of extra hard because it's slapstick. It's a kid's movie.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they build it as a kid's movie, and they built it as a kid's movie, like a kid's movie, and it kind of sucks in that regard. Whereas Jungle Cruise, like, people are getting like dropped. They're dying.
There are some gruesome deaths in this movie. I was like, dear God.
Surprisingly.
Something that elevates The Mummy is that it has a good amount of body horror. It's campy, but it's serious, and it's serious to a degree, and it has that body horror, which they had, like, when a dude's face gets sliced open and snakes are coming out of it. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. No, this very much reminded me. I'm glad you brought up the Mummy comparison, like, because it's like you very much took the Mummy, Indiana Jones, and then Pirates of the Caribbean. You threw it in a blender, and out came this movie, because that's literally what it is. I know that's like a bad thing to say about movies, but I mean that actually in a positive sense, because it takes some of the best elements of those movies and uses them really well here. Because like it reminds me of the body horror, like you said, from the Mummy, even with Pirates of the Caribbean, where it's like in this movie you got like the equivalent to Davy Jones's crew, where they're like half sea people. Here you have people that are half jungle like existent. I don't know how else to describe them, but like they have parts of their body are like they match the habitat that they're part of, like the jungle. One person has snakes growing out of them, and the way he uses them is very graphic. The other is literally made of bees and honeycomb. The other one's just mud, and then one's just trees like Evil Dead. And it's like, all right, like, yeah, no, while this is a family movie, it's like it doesn't hold back from, like, you know, what Pirates of the Caribbean kind of did as a family picture, where it's just like, no, there's some dark things happening in this movie. You're like, you know, you got skeleton pirates walking around, or a giant kraken that scared the hell out of me as a kid.
I was going to say, like, I don't want to get too reductive comparing this to other movies, but this is a movie based off a theme park ride, so I think we're fine.
Plus, you know what, man? It's a jungle movie with The Rock that surprisingly Steve enjoyed.
True. I didn't even think about that. That is absolutely true. Oh, this blows Jumanji 2 out of the friggin' water.
All you had to do is cut out Jack Black and Kevin Hart, replace them with Emily Blunt and Jack Whitehall, and there you go.
There you go. Jesse Plemons, everything. Some urgency. Who would have thought? Jack Black not being an out-of-body female commenting on his genitalia. You know, there still is hope for screenwriting in Hollywood. But moreover, too, I see, I'm surprised this hasn't been mentioned yet. You know, I think the other thing that caught my eye early, too, and you saw it in the trailer a little bit, but it's kind of different to see it in the movie, is that, like, The Rock really isn't like his ordinarily amiable self. He's not like aggressively cynical, but he's definitely like plays a disillusioned person who's perpetually in debt to this like crusty harbor master who's played again by Paul Giamatti. And, you know, we look at Dwayne Johnson for that like hunky build, that smile he has and whatever, and he's crankier in this movie. And I kind of enjoyed that.
Yes.
I kind of enjoyed that. He doesn't have a ton of range as an actor, but he shows a little bit of it here, and I respect that.
It was so good because, like, I mean, coming off of Hobbs and Shaw, which I did not like, coming off of that, as well as like Skyscraper and other movies that he was doing around that time, like Rampage, where he plays as the guy that like knows exactly what he's doing, has his like, you know, has everything together, like, you know, is the perfect man, basically, like the total badass that he is. It felt so refreshing to see The Rock be like, yeah, he's an action hero in this, but like he messes up. He's not living the best life. Like, one of my favorite scenes is like they do the heroic swing across the vine, but the way it concludes is like, oh, all right, like they actually didn't pull that off, because in actual realism, The Rock's size, I know realism in a Jungle Cruise movie, who go figure, but the Rock's size would not be able to work out like that.
I like how
he gets
it's
the
not
dagger.
even like, it's not even like inadvertently like, oh, they wind up somewhere else. No, they wind up exactly where they started. And it's like Emily Blunt just goes, let's try something else. That didn't work. It's just straight up no resolution. And I appreciated that.
And this is a movie too that's greatly, I know we got to take our Zoom sponsor and intermission soon, but like this is a movie too that I think is greatly elevated by the cast. I think they nailed the cast with this thing. Right down to Jack Whitehall, who I think grows into be a more likable character, you know, because he's like Dom said, he's like the priss for like, you know, a third of the movie, but he kind of grows into being a pretty likable character. And then you have
I want to expand on that.
You want to have
later.
We'll do that after the intermission. You also too have Emily Blunt and The Rock, who kind of have, I know that like Whitehall and Emily Blunt, they're kind of like they're siblings in the movie, but Blunt and The Rock have this kind of sibling-esque dynamic to them that makes it very funny. They have like a mostly platonic relationship in the movie, which is kind of refreshing in and of itself, you know, that it carries that. And then you have Jesse Plemons, who's just going that full-on smarminess coupled with his usual deadpan. You have Paul Giamatti, who's just channeling that big fat liar goofball ass energy, you know, like. And I love Paul Giamatti. Continues to be one of the most underappreciated actors in cinema, in American cinema. I grin every time I see Paul Giamatti in a movie. That guy is awesome, because I'll tell you right now, there needs to be more balding, middle-aged, old guy representation in Hollywood. And he is the friggin' king. He looks like the neighbor that'll loan you his wheelbarrow. Love Paul Giamatti. At any rate, we'll take our Zoom-sponsored intermission, come back with more thoughts on Jungle Cruise, and we got to talk about Clifford the Big Red Dog, the mobile super spreader himself, who's now delayed until TBD. So we'll get into that, take our Zoom-sponsored intermission, be back in less than 2 minutes. This is Sleepless with Steve. back and better than ever. It's Sleepless with Steve, live on YouTube, live and in living color every Wednesday evening. That was our Zoom-sponsored intermission. But going back to what I was talking about with Jungle Cruise, is that, you know, this is a movie that's, again, like, it has, I would say, pretty good writing. I'm not even going to say the actors elevate the writers in this case. It's not like, because I always say that, like, with some movies, especially blockbusters. There's a lot of, like, big budget comedies or, like, big budget action movies where it's like the likability of the cast almost disguises the lackluster screenplay. But I would say this is a decently written movie that's further elevated by its cast, because we have sort of this really, I'm not going to say diverse in the sense that they have, like, different acting styles, but they're all likable. Like, even Plemons. Like, Plemons is the villain, obviously, but Plemons still, like, you smile, you laugh at him and stuff when he's on screen. It's just so intensely watchable, and that's what this movie ultimately is very watchable. It's very engaging, too. It's a little long. It's a little flabby, but it's engaging. If we want to talk some of the negatives here, I'll say I say the one negative that kept popping up for me is that, like, going back to talking about, like, you know, how this is very reminiscent of classic adventure Disney movies, though. I don't remember this being a huge issue in Journey to the Mysterious Island. I don't know if you gentlemen saw that. I like that one for the most part, and I like this one, Jungle Cruise, a little bit more.
The Rock, but also is that with Vanessa Hudgens?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's the sequel. I didn't realize it. It's called Journey 2, The Mysterious Island, Journey the number 2. I didn't realize that was a sequel to Journey to the Center of the Earth at the time. I was like, what the hell is 2 for? Like, but it's the sequel to the remake of Journey to the Center of the Earth. But anyway, the one thing, though, and, like, you kind of have to accept this at this point, but it's still a criticism, is that you realize over time you're really staring at a green screen. You really realize that with some of the backdrops and whatnot. Some of the CGI work on here is not great, especially on some of the animals. And for a $200 million movie, I'll say those are some of the worst snakes I've seen in a movie in some time. The snakes were terrible looking. And the thing is, this movie was delayed for over a year. I'm surprised that they didn't have more time to polish this. Like, the tiger looks great until it starts moving. The tiger looks great when it stands still, and then it starts moving, and, like, you almost feel like the floor's moving with it. Then the snakes look awful. Like, it was weird in that. Some of the CGI work in this was not very good for a $200 million movie.
I don't. To me, it was just fine. Nothing really nothing like wowed me, but it didn't really bother me all that much. Honestly, I just kind of chalked it up to the campiness of it all. So it's like, you know what? That's fine. Not really an excuse. So I'll take that as negative, just because, like, Pirates of the Caribbean had that level of camp and funny and, you know, humor, and yet it pushed the boundaries on CGI, no doubt, particularly with sequel and Davy Jones. Honestly, what bothered me was just more so, like, did at least the first half of the movie feel like a frenetic cut after cut after cut? And, like, I know we're getting into more technical stuff, but it's like, you have The Rock. Like, he made his living off of, like, fight choreography live in front of people. He knows how to, like, do choreography and fight choreography and stuff. At least I would hope so after all this time. And, you know, Emily Blunt, she's more than capable. She's proven herself repeatedly more than capable. And it's like, I feel like you can trust these actors or their stunt people to be able to pull off some cool stuff, because at least during, like, honestly, just a lot of the action sequences, just there's, like, no trust there that they can accomplish these things. And, like, you could say, oh, COVID or whatever. But I don't think that's it. I think, yeah. And honestly, that probably does go back to the reliance on CGI, because then it's like, there's not really much to show off here other than, yeah, Emily Blunt is just throwing random people into things that you can't see, or rather it's such a short insert into things that you just people are just flailing around on scene, and I'm not getting anything out of it other than obstacle, and I'm tuning out. So again, very technical thing, just kind of falls back to the old Jackie Chan argument. But yeah, Steve.
I'll mention, though, the movie was directed by Jaume Collet-Serra. He directed what I still consider to be the best Liam Neeson movie of the last 15 years, the best Liam Neeson action movie of the last 15 years, which is Nonstop. That is easily my favorite Liam Neeson action movie through and through. I like it more than Taken.
Because they played around. I didn't watch the movie, but in the trailers, they played around with like the turbulence, right? And he's like shooting
in the spatial
in
awareness. That movie was direct. Colette Sarah did a bang up job directing that thing. Less so The Commuter, which was another Liam Neeson movie he directed. Less so that I didn't see Run All Night. But he also directed The Shallows, which was that shark movie.
Yeah, that's a good movie.
He directed that one too. I always felt Colette Sarah was underrated. I always felt like he was a better director than a lot of people thought. I didn't really experience, and that's more of an editing issue. I didn't really feel like it was frenetic in the beginning. I thought, if anything, that the spatial awareness aspect was pretty good overall with this movie. Like it never felt super choppy to me. It never felt like expert level, but it felt efficient enough for what it was, in my opinion. And like I said, again, I'm biased too. I really like Colette Sarah. I don't think in the canon of action directors, he gets his just dues.
I mean, coming from the director who's got to start making a bunch of horror stuff and then switch to Liam Neeson action movies, not action movies, Liam Neeson action movies, because apparently those are his last like 4 films, not last 4 films, but like 4 under his belt. Now he's switching to The Rock, and he's leading into the action even harder. So
that's right. He
honestly,
did start with horror. He did. I was gonna say, I think House of Wax was his first.
and that's not a knock because it's clearly going.
No,
I forgot. It's going well into this movie because there's a lot of body horror and like mystical stuff going on, which is really cool. So yeah. Honestly, other than that, it's like you're cutting too hard, but then it just feels like you're making up for the bloat in this movie. I don't know what I could have cut out of this movie. I know you guys are like rearranging the movie to a degree, but I don't know what you could have cut out of here. But how long did this film wind up being? Like 127 minutes. Yeah, that feels a little. I don't know. Something about it.
That was
it dragged.
That was my only issue with the movie. That like again, for a movie based on a ride, it doesn't have to be over 2 hours long. I know that's something we say almost every week now, but it's so true about a lot of movies these days. Like they don't really need to be this long because like the movie's pacing is really just this little bickering back and forth. Okay, we've talked long enough. It is time for an action sequence. Action sequence ensues. Okay, bickering plot. Okay, hold on. We've been talking for 10 minutes. We need an action sequence. Let's go to the river rapids. And it's just like that. That is how the movie is structured. It's not bad that it's structured like that because even the action sequences in this movie are a lot of fun. They're really well done.
I agree.
But it's like it's one thing when it's like it's not good action. It's filmed horribly or it looks bad. It's like it's filmed great. There's great energy to it. There's some fun stunts to it as well, at least. But that's how this movie really is structured. It's just like, oh man, it's like literally they'll talk for like 10-15 minutes. Once it hits that 15-minute mark and it's like we haven't had someone die yet or an explosion go off. We need that to happen.
I don't know. I just feel like he called her pants too many times.
There was that too.
All right, we get it.
There was that. They overdid that joke. I mean,
it's me, The Rock. Pants, my catchphrase of this movie.
If there's anything in terms of characterization that I do want to give a shout out to, credit where credit is due, particularly in Disney, it was on the make a real mixed record on this, is Jack Whitehall's character, the brother, McGregor, and you detect it right away, but this is a gay character, and how they handle that I thought was actually a marked improvement, a significant improvement over the past stuff they've done. Nothing really groundbreaking here, to be honest.
That's
with
a
you,
great point. That's a great point.
It is such an improvement because like to give Disney where credit is due. I know we were just crapping on them at the start of the show, but to give them where credit is due, most typical like blockbuster Hollywood movies would take the easy way with this character. Like, look, yeah, we included him in the movie. All right, we did our job. Like. This, it's like they do establish that, you know, he is gay, like at one point in the movie, but he actually like serves a purpose. He's actually useful during this. He's not just there to be like this, constantly, because I thought that's what his character was going to be.
He was at first.
Yeah, and at first too, I'm like, all right, well, he's going to be that character. The the shock value character will just cut to you for reaction shots and everything. But no, like he actually manages like to stand his own ground to where he even gets he gets one of the like a really funny kill on somebody in the movie near the end. And I was just like, wow, you guys actually, like, you're making progress. Granted, this isn't like, we shouldn't make an article about it. Be like, Disney's first jungle gay character has, like, officially been released in Jungle Cruise.
Gay character.
Like, because it's just like, that's how they are with a lot of these characters. It's just like, no.
JGC for sure.
Yeah. Just put them in the movie. Get it out there, and let's keep moving. This was a step in the right direction, like you were saying.
Jungle cruising.
Oh boy. Just that his gayness, or that aspect of him as a person, as the character, actually like elevated everything about him, as opposed to just being there. It was like, oh, okay. He told the story about, I guess, mouth spoilers, but he told the story about how he's gay. This is World War I era England where he grew up, so that's not going to be too welcomed at all. So then he had a falling out with family. And then, but his sister, Emily Blunt, stuck with him through all of that. Yeah. So that explains why he's just following along with her for all of this. And he's annoying as shit, at least in the beginning. But he's loyal. He's loyal, and he's a brother. And it actually, like, there's a point to this. So it's like, okay, cool. Again, I'm still upset over how they made a big stink about LeFou being gay in the Beauty and the Beast live action thing. And it's literally 0.7 second, not literally, but I don't know, but like it feels like 0.7 seconds where he's dancing with another dude at the very end of the movie so that they can cut it for the China release. I was like, you know what?
That level of outrage was so damn ridiculous. I mean, like, I went on the rant about Negasonic Teenage Warhead. That was crap too.
That was one of the worst theater experiences I've ever had. Like, I didn't give a shit that LeFou was gay or whatever. I don't care. I like whether he is or not. I always thought he was, even when I watched the animated movie. But I remember sitting there in the theater, and like they show him dance with that guy at the end, and everybody they went, oh. Like, oh, Disney did it. I'm like, really? That's how we're gonna give them credit? This is it. This is like, we finally got inclusion for this community. This is all it takes. Get out of here.
Yeah. We'll wrap things up. I don't want to go too deep into Sleepless OT. I mean, I've said pretty much all my points at this juncture. I enjoyed it. I think it's a fun family movie, too. It's a little dark at times, but it's nothing I don't think, your average kid can't handle or anything like that. I think it's a very fun family movie. And I think this has really been, in my opinion, I don't want to complain much because of the fact that, like, I'm happy to see these big movies in theaters, mostly regardless of quality. I think it's kind of been a ho-hum year for blockbusters personally. But again, I'm not harping on that. I'm just grateful to be back in a movie theater at the end of the day, especially given where we were last year. But this is one of the more palatable blockbusters this year, in my opinion. This is definitely, if I made a list of favorite blockbusters exclusively of the year, this would probably be a top so far. I'd give it 3 out of 4 stars. I think it's a good movie. It's not without its shortcomings, but I think that, we had a positive aura kind of talking about it, and I think that loans itself to a lot of the direction and what it was going for. So it's a 3 out of 4 stars for me. Joe, and then Dom, give your pithy summations.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I don't think this movie is perfect either. I think it actually has a lot of issues that we see commonly with blockbusters today. But the fact of the matter is that there was care put into this movie at the very least. The actors had care. I feel like the people who made the actual Jungle Cruise itself, like, that thing actually looked really good. It's just there was a lot of care put into this. It obviously, I thought this was gonna be quick dollar turnout for Disney. Like, we'll just make this for real quick. We got 2 big stars in it. We'll make money. No, it was actually a lot of effort put in. So for me, despite it, like, some, like, especially, we get the typical third act becomes the CGI, like, glorified fest of action sequences that we get with a lot nowadays. I had a lot of fun with this as well. It's 3 out of 4 stars for me too.
So I was going to give this 3.5 out of 4 stars, but I got to knock it down. I got to knock it down to 3 just because The Mummy, it sexually awakened a generation of moviegoers. Like, I don't think you realize this. Everyone in The Mummy is hot, like straight up. And the sequel, especially so, because they give the villain a hot wife, and it's like, damn. So, like, seriously, Brendan Fraser, knockout in that movie. So unfortunately, I have to look. Jungle Cruise will probably sexually awaken some youngsters as well. Emily Blunt Emily Blunt, Emily Blunt, definitely good looking, and The Rock, nothing to laugh at. But yeah, this is fun. And I honestly, if this was like the worst movies had to offer, hell, man, that's a good landscape to be in. So I mean, if you call it generic, I think I think there's a little more love and care put into this to call it generic. But it is, regardless of where you stand on that, it's fun. And despite its technical issues on whether it's CGI, stunt work, cutting, whatever, it's just fun at the end of the day, and I gotta reward that. So three out of 4 stars for me.
What a happy review. Love
Yes.
it. Great work, gentlemen. So we will end with this. Don't want to take up too much time on this. Fun fact, this is now the 3rd segment we've devoted to Clifford the Big Red Dog, and we have not seen the movie yet. So this has become, I think it's
Tenet.
almost, you can call this the Tenet. You can call this Tenet. And I'm having a lot more fun talking about this movie than I ever did Tenet in any way, shape, or form. But yeah, this is the 3rd time because we did the teaser trailer reaction, we did the full trailer reaction, and now we have the delayed indefinitely reaction. So if you don't know now, you know. Paramount announced that they've pulled Clifford the Big Red Dog off the schedule for September 17th. It was supposed to come to theaters. It is now delayed indefinitely. Fun fact, I went to a new theater, not a new theater, but a new to me theater this weekend to go see The Green Knight. And I went there. It's sort of near me, not really. It's a little out of the way. But I went there, and they had a poster for Clifford the Big Red Dog still hanging up in the lobby. And I'm buying like popcorn. I want to try the popcorn at this place. And I bought a ticket to Green Knight. And I go, hey, you know, Clifford the Big Red Dog got delayed. And she's like, yeah, we got a notice from the theater. I said, I'll give you $15 cash for that poster. They said no. You can only try in life. You can only try in life. You know, so I'm like, I'll give you $15 cash money. Let me have that Clifford poster. Said no functioning adult with that has to do taxes ever, but still. But anyway. So Clifford the Big Red Dog been delayed indefinitely. And I think Paramount has a winner on their hands with this one. I do not see this going straight to Paramount Plus for a couple of reasons. Because that's kind of been the rumor now, is that this is going to be a Paramount Plus dump in the next couple of months or so, or soon enough. I don't see that being the case because early tracking for this movie puts this movie at around over $100 million overall. So I don't see this being a bomb, and I don't see this being a streaming dump. And I'll talk about another reason why in a minute, but it's pulled from the schedule amidst concerns over the Delta variant of COVID-19. But this is another blow to Paramount. And I think this has kind of been underreported in recent years. Paramount's not doing well as a studio, and they haven't been doing well for some time. And they're an enigma too, because they have a ton of properties. They have South Park, they have Friday the 13th, they have Jackass, they have several properties, Star Trek. They just don't really know what to kind of do with them and how to handle them. And just a couple of years ago, Paramount, over the course of 2 years, lost over $500 million in box office bombs. They and this is funny because they had Zoolander 2 that bombed. They had Ben-Hur. Remember the remake of Ben-Hur? I totally forgot about it until this morning.
Oh, wow.
When I was doing research, there was a remake of Ben-Hur, and I did see it and review it in 2016. There was that bombed. There was Star Trek Beyond that bombed. There were several bombs that Paramount has had kind of in a string, and this is another blow. But the bigger question at the end of the day is, will this make studios table other movies? And I want to hear your thoughts. My opinion is this. I don't think we're going to get the delays that we did get last year. I don't think that to be the case. Old Takes Exposed is going to come for me in about a month and a half, but I don't think that'll be the case. What I do think is in jeopardy, however, are kid movies. I think The Addams Family 2, I think Hotel Transylvania, whatever the hell they're on at this point, I think Sing 2.
Forgot that movie.
I think those are on notice. I think those movies are on notice. I think the kid movies are on notice at the moment as far as this, because Clifford, I mean, it's noteworthy. The first movie that got delayed last year was No Time to Die. And I keep making the joke that maybe I'll see No Time to Die by the time I'm almost near death in a nursing home, by the time that thing comes out. But I think kid movies run the risk of being delayed. We saw SpongeBob go directly to Paramount Plus. And I'm wondering if that will be the case with these subsequent kid movies that are due to release this fall, especially if this Delta variant intensifies like it has. Joe, your thoughts? Will Clifford's delay lead to movie studios tabling movies once again?
Yeah. There's a reason why Soul, Luca, Mitchell's versus the Machines, SpongeBob, Trolls World Tour, all of that stuff made the call early on to sell to a streaming service or use it on their own streaming service or sell it to on demand. Because I think we're gonna get a repeat of last year. I think Steve is right. I don't think it's gonna be the big movies. I think No Time to Die is coming out no matter what. I think MGM just wants that thing off its table like now. They don't care if it's only one person going to the theater to see it. Like, I would be like, I said like Shang-Chi might get delayed. I maybe Disney might pull like some of those because Marvel, like, while it pertains to like all ranges for when it comes to ages. They might be like, well, we want like families be able to take their kids to go see the next Marvel movie, so we might delay that. But in terms of animated films or just directly kids films, like something like Clifford the Big Red Dog or like Space Jam, like where even it has like live action parts. I do think it's gonna get delayed because of the new variant. It's gonna happen. I think if we don't see a release date by next month for this movie, I wouldn't be surprised if they try to make this a Thanksgiving or Christmas Day movie for Paramount Plus to get like subscribers in at the door that weekend, because families will be with each other, so it'll give something the kids to watch while they subscribe to Paramount Plus. Dom.
Yo, I just found out Jack Whitehall is both the brother in Jungle Cruise and he's the dad in Clifford the Big Red Dog. That blew my mind. Like, dude, a beard changes everything. I swear, there are shots in Jungle Cruise where Jack Whitehall looks like the younger brother of Superman, the latest Superman.
Henry
Cavill. Like, I'm not joking. And then here, like, he just looks like a total normal hipster dad in like Clifford the Big Red Dog. I'm okay. Dude, this is it's a sign of things to come, I think. And if there's any movie that's going to get delayed, it might as well be Clifford, because you can just use it to boost Joe hit it for me, is that he to boost your subscriber counts. I mean, technically every movie does that, but for this specifically aimed at kids, it's a true kids movie. If you watch that trailer again, which I did when I saw it in the theater for Jungle Cruise, I'm like, God damn, those, like, that happy guitar really does come in at the perfect moment after little girl's tear of magic makes Clifford big. Steve, you're gonna freaking love this movie, man. And it's like, as long as there's no rapping pigeon.
I got the graphic novel adaptation pre-ordered. I kid you not, it's coming out this month. It's supposed to, at least.
Can that be your first book review after Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? Like your book.
Yeah, we'll see. I'll finish this in a day. I'll finish it in a day.
I want your section of the Sleepless, StevePulaski.com. I want your book review section to be Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Clifford the Big Red Dog, the movie graphic novel. Like, that's what I want it to be. I want to see that
funny?
order.
That's actually what it's called. It's called Clifford the Big Red Dog, the movie, the graphic novel. That is
why did I know that?
What it is called.
I didn't look that up.
Jesus Christ.
I guessed that.
So I it's supposed to come out this month. We'll see if it happens. I'm excited for that. But damn it, I want this movie. This was supposed to come out last Thanksgiving, and they've been talking about it for years. This movie's been in the works since like 2010. I swear to God, this thing has been like, because Paramount, for whatever reason, they do this constantly. Paramount, you look up what they own. They have so many properties, and they don't move on them. Or like Friday the 13th, when they remade that. I can't believe that never got a sequel. I'm not saying it was great, but I can't believe it never got a sequel. A Nightmare on Elm Street, South Park. I can't believe these movies never got sequels. And I mean, you could say that like TMNT 2 bombed, but I think that was for an alternate reason. I just don't understand like what they do with their properties, how they can lose so much money. Like investing $100 million into a Ben-Hur remake seems nonsensical.
That's why Tom Cruise like literally does like crazy ass stunts in these Mission Impossible movies. He's like risking his life for the studio to make a profit.
tell me about it. That's our show, though, for this week. Next week, Dom is going to be absent. I don't think we've ever done a show without Dom.
No, this will be the first one.
I messaged the guys like, hey, I think this is my first ever absence. This is my first tardy ever. And there is like a legit reason. Like I gotta have a rehearsal that has to happen on that day. So
you're good, man. Don't worry about it. It's gonna be a little weird the next couple of weeks though, because let me check the schedule one more time before we sign off. You're gone next week, and actually, Dom, this will be the first time I really like see you directly or like on camera. This will be the last time I see you until the 25th, because I'm off the 18th. I'm off the 18th, so you guys are manning the ship. And then next week you're gone. So I won't talk to you now until we review Man-Thing, the Marvel movie.
Oh, no better way to catch up with you.
You're going to be in a great mood for that. I can't wait.
Now this is my show.
But yeah, next week we got the Suicide Squad. I mean, there's really nothing else out this weekend. So the Suicide Squad, that's in theaters and on HBO Max. So Joe and I will review that. The only good thing about Dom being gone is that we won't have the Zoom sponsored intermission, but still that is no consolation really to the absence of the man in the inimitable blue polo. But we will somehow, some way persist. But that's our show tonight on Sleepless with Steve. Highlights will be posted on my YouTube channel right here. You can also see past highlights on my YouTube channel or go to stevepulaski.com for more information along with my reviews as well. You can see my written review of The Jungle Cruise over there at stevepulaski.com. Great show, gentlemen. For Dominic Guanzon in that blue polo, Joe Viso, man in the board, exceptionally like he always does in his Fight Club t-shirt. And yours truly. This has been Sleepless with Steve.